It's another episode of Wearable today. We've got our wearables on and we're ready to go, and we're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to talk about what happened in 2014. We're going to talk about what's going to happen in 2015, and we're going to talk about all the cool wearables that you can wear, all on this episode of Wearable today. So let's get started with episode number 61 of Wearable today. Hey everybody, Jeffrey Powers here from Geekazine Thing Magazine. Put in a geek, you've got Geekazine. And of course, as always, my cohort in crime, Mr. Luke Wallace. How you doing, Luke?
Doing good tonight, Jeff. Yeah, if you're looking for me, I'm Luke Luca on Twitter. That's Lukeluca, or on Google Plus at Plus Luke Wallace. You can see how to spell my name down there at the bottom. That's been fun. Been running into a lot of people that don't know how to spell the name Luke, so that's Luke for any of those people out there that are listening. And then if you want to reach Birdie, I got Birdie here tonight. That's Birdie, Birdie, at wearabletoday.com.
All right, there you go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, now we've talked about that. Now we're talking about this. Let's get into the news for this week in our little segment we call Big News, Little Arms.
So, we start off tonight with an article over on Mashable. Are you working so hard to fall asleep before your favorite primetime show starts? Well, your wristband could notice if you fall asleep. Oh, I'm sorry. Are you working so hard that you fall asleep?
Did you fall asleep for the show?
Yeah. I'm not asleep now. Believe it or not, I'm actually awake. Kipster, that's Kipstr, capital R at the end, is a band, a watch-type band, not a musical band, developed by two teenagers that monitors your vitals to find out if you're asleep. If it detects that you're asleep, it will then do things like record your favorite show through your DVR, or it might also be used to see how you react to a show. Like, are you excited, or or is it boring, whatever it is. So maybe this will one day be the Nielsen ratings band that people just wear to use. Who knows? So that's the Kipster. You can read the full article over there on Mashable.
All right, next up, Sony is working on a clip-on wearable for your glasses. It can work with regular glasses, sunglasses, and more. You can even take that device off when you're getting ready to walk into that movie theater to watch your favorite movie, so you don't have to not see the movie, of course. Sony is unveiling this tech at CES. We don't have a name for it. We don't have pricing information for it or anything. But of course, it's going to be shown off at CES. And so when I go out there, I will definitely catch you guys up on what's going on there.
Up next, we've got an article that comes directly from the Google Glass team, and it is the top 10 stories about Google Glass from 2014. So we'll just read these off real quick. Coming in at number 10, Glass Addict. Who knew that was a thing, they say. We talked about that on a show. Then number 9, Glass heads across the pond to the UK. I remember we did discuss that one. Number 8, hospital helps moms bond with their babies while they're in NICUs, or natal intensive care units. Number 7, an artist makes glass cool. Thanks FKA Twigs. It's formerly known as Twigs. Number 6, firefighter test glassware for emergency response. I know that's been a big thing we've talked about, is in police and EMS, like just a couple weeks ago. Number 5, oh wait, you want more frames? Cue DVF made for glass. Those are those fancy frames that came out. Number 4, Glass launches its own frames. Meet the titanium collections, which I'm actually modeling one of those right now. So if you want to see what one of the titanium collection frames look like, you can see them on me. I was really excited about that story. Number 3, Glass parts cost less than $80. Not quite, says Google. but it was one of the most read articles on Google Glass. Number 2, say hello to Ivy Ross, the new head of Glass. And number 1, Explorer's traffic ticket thrown out. I believe that's the Cecilia Abadi ticket that happened towards the very end of 2013, so probably early 2014 when she actually went to court, so kind of a friend of the show.
For speeding.
Yes, it was she got a traffic ticket for speeding, and then they said, hey, you're wearing glass, so yeah, you can't do that.
Stop speeding.
And so then she went to court, and they said, okay, I guess you weren't speeding, or, I don't know. This is confusing to me, and it got thrown out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a speeding ticket. They didn't say it was a ticket for wearing glass, but that's how everyone thinks about it. So.
Yeah, that's true.
But whatever.
Right.
So those are the top 10 stories for Google Glass for 2014.
All right, let's move on here. Is there a vulnerability for watches? Yes, it's the pin. At least that's what Bitdefender wants you to understand. They're explaining how a 6-digit PIN code can actually be cracked if an attacker wants to get into and can get your data at that point. It makes you wonder if we need more secure situations going on here. We actually had a very in-depth conversation before we came onto the show, Luke and I did, on the whole idea of this, of somebody getting into a wearable. And we're going to research it a little bit more because there's a few holes that's in this thing. And of course, a lot of people in the comments section that were kind of disputing what was being said on this. But if you want to read the article yourself, we've got the article over here at where is that at? That's at wearabletechnology-news.com if you want to see more about that. And finally,
a topic we haven't talked too much about, but back at Google I/O, Google released something called Cardboard. Although it started off and a lot of people thought it was kind of a joke, it's really grown into an interesting way to see 3D on a really low budget. Cardboard is a device that you put your phone in and then run apps or watch videos that can then display the content in 3D, basically a left eye and a right eye on the two halves of your phone, and then show it to you. They've released some updates for it, the Android Wear 5.0 they're calling it, and so it's been inspired by Lollipop, and it's being distributed much more widely and has a much wider adoption than it did at I/O now. So this device, it really turns your phone into an Oculus Rift of sorts, kind of a low budget, simple version, not nearly as many controls or as high definition for most phones, but a really good introduction to 3D VR.
All right, and that does it for this week's Big News Little Arms. I can never get too much of that growl. So now I've got my glasses on and I got my gloves on and everything like that. How you doing? How was your Christmas in Dallas, Texas there, Luke?
It was good. Got to see both my family and my in-laws over the break. Spent just a lot of time hanging out, catching up for the year, making plans for next year, exchanging a few little gifts here and there. So lots of good stuff. A few days off of work, always nice. So yeah,
that must be nice to have a few days off of work.
Some of us just can't do the podcast life.
Yeah, it's more than a podcast life. There's some video in there too.
Oh yeah. Wait, video podcast. Right.
Video podcast killed the podcast star. So they tell me so. So
Yeah,
as you can see, I'm kind of wearing the Christmas gifts I have. Of course, Jennifer gave me this nice sweatshirt. I can't remember what they call this sweatshirt. But it's really nice and comfortable, and I like it.
Looks soft,
And
yeah.
yeah, thank you. And of course, I got Jennifer is big into what's called poi, POI,
Mm.
which is these two balls. You take these two balls and you swing them around. And I'm surprised she hasn't set up anything firewise for the poi. But why is this not working right? There we go. Well, that's interesting. But anyway, with the poi, they have like really cool stuff like these gloves. And for some reason, the brake glove is not working too well. But that's okay because I can't run my mouse with the gloves on. So I don't know if you can see this that well, but these are poi gloves, and they're flashing really really fast. I can actually slow them down and change colors. So this is kind of my wearable technology I got for Christmas, and which is
Hmm.
pretty cool. So I got the gloves, and they're nice and comfortable and warm. And then, of course, as a gag gift, I gave my brothers and myself. I like to find cool stuff to get us all, and so I found these welding glasses, and which are really cool because they kind of look like if I got a top hat, I could do a Willy Wonka type thing and have a little bit of fun with that. So, but they don't they look cool? I mean, do I look like a bug or something like that?
You do look kind of like some big bug. Uh, it, but it does look kind of futuristic, a little steampunkish, but maybe more modern steampunk, something like that. Those poi gloves are really interesting because I was just seeing a whole bunch of those when I was watching the San Antonio River Parade that they do, and there were
Okay.
tons of people on the floats, which are actually float in the when they go down the river in San Antonio, uh, and they all had those gloves with the little flashing fingertips, and I was like, I have never seen those before. What are those? Like, where do those come from? So, like, when you popped up wearing those, I was like, that's amazing. I hope he explains where those come from so I can go look them up because they
Well,
look really cool.
well, it's really simple. It's Amazon. I found them
Mm.
on Amazon. I can get you the link. And I'll put the link in the show notes if you guys are interested in getting a pair of poi gloves. And they're relatively cheap. The electronic poi that I got her was not as cheap. But you know, that's what you do is you get not too cheap stuff for the people you love, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, so did you get any did you say you got any cool gifts? What you get?
I got a few little tools that I'd been wanting, like some electrical tools. Um, I did get a really neat book. It's the new Star Wars costumes book. It's from the original trilogy. They released a book several years ago for the prequel trilogy, and they've just released in the last month or so one for the original trilogy. So episodes 4, 5, and 6. And so it has really, really nice photographs of the costumes. They've taken them out of storage and put them on mannequins and taken some real high resolution photos and they have a whole lot of stories from the people who actually made them about where things came from. And so, yeah, real interesting. So
That's cool.
yeah,
That's cool.
it's a great coffee
Uh,
table book. It's gonna be out all the time now.
okay. Well, when I come over there next, I'll take a look at it and
Hmm.
see what inspires me for Star Wars. So
Yeah.
anyway, let's move on here. We've got it's a relatively short show. I mean, we're 2 weeks before the new year, and we're 2 weeks before Consumer Electronics Show, which is the big actually less. It's next week. It is next week, and I get on a plane on Saturday and head down to Las Vegas, Nevada, to get ready to learn a little bit about this. So we did a little bit of research. Well, first of all, we talked about that article from Google, the top 10, which I don't think it was really a top 10 list. It was more like a 10 things that happened, and we just ordered them into a top 10 list. Because I would guess that Ivy Ross would probably be higher than somebody getting a parking ticket or getting out of a parking ticket, which doesn't make much sense to me. But you know, hey, it is what it is. So, and it also started making me think about the things that happened in wearable technology this last year. Like for instance, CES 2014, the first one of the first booths that we walked up on was for Reebok and a headgear that had the ability to tell a coach if a person's suffering a concussion from the hits. And we saw some glass alternatives. We saw some clothing alternatives, wearable technology, a lot of fitness trackers and stuff like that. But Luke, just kind of off the top of your head, scan through this last year really quick. Think to yourself, what was the one wearable that kind of piece of news wearable wise that you can kind of remember to happen this last year?
Ooh, for me, I would say it was Android Wear. I mean, they launched that platform at Google I/O back in June and said, "Okay, we've we've taken the input from Google Glass and we're making this whole platform for wearables of all different form factors. It's not going to have to be glass. It's not going to have to be a watch. We're going to start with a couple of watches, but it's really a platform that we're looking to bring a lot of capabilities to. We don't know exactly where it's going to go, but they really wanted to set the new bar for, okay, a wearable has to be able to do certain things. And so I would say that was probably the biggest wearable news, is that they really launched a standard platform, at least on the Android side, that would interface with devices and would actually run the wearables themselves.
Okay. Cool. Well, mine, I've interviewed so many people that have gotten into the wearable space. I was thinking about this a little bit, and I think the one thing which I haven't really heard much of coming out of South by Southwest, because I did the interview at South by Southwest, was Atlas Wearable Fitness Tracker. And it was a device that actually did more than just figured out burning calories and stuff like that. It could actually tell repetitions. You could use this device in the pool, and it would tell you how many strokes you did. You could go back into the gym and do some curls, and it could tell you how many curls you did, and then gave you more data to kind of sync with and figure out. And of course, I don't know if it could tell. It probably can't tell how much weight, if I'm curling a 25-pound weight or a 50-pound weight. But I'm hoping that you would then be able to put in that information and go from there. So I would say that the Atlas was the one that really sparked my interest, because it was more than just, guesstimates of how much you slept and how much you walked and stuff like that. On the other turn of it, 2 weeks ago when I was in Barcelona, I learned how HP is really working on taking wearables and hooking them up into the enterprise, which is something that hasn't really been explained as of yet, is how your Google Glass is going to work if your Google Glass is owned by a company, and you're a service person, or how your watch is going to work, how it's going to hook up in tandem with your phone or any other wearables to find out where you are, what you're doing, and go from there. And so I was very interested to see how they figured out some algorithms to kind of say, okay, the phone is working, we can send information to the phone. Oh, the phone got turned off. Okay, we can send the information to the watch. Oh, the watch is not working, we can send the information to the glass, and a person can never get lost. So those two things were the big ones that I found in 2014 from where I've gone back and forth. But there's a whole bunch of stuff that I don't think either Luke or I have been kind of put into the know on. And that's still coming out, if it hasn't come out already.
Yeah, I think
So,
CES is just going to be huge. Maybe this is jumping ahead a little too much, but yeah, I think that this year was kind of a turning point for wearables, where they became something that was more than just a really niche aspect. I think now all of a sudden it's like it's a lot more mainstream. It's a lot more. It's something people are thinking about, even if it's not something everyone has right now. It's something everybody is at least starting to be aware of. You know, with Android Wear and then Apple announcing the Apple Watch, which will probably launch, pretty soon. Next few months is definitely expected, and so we're going to see that everybody's kind of knowledge, or the wearable will have a lot more mind share in 2015 thanks to everything that happened in 2014. Really kind of interesting on what's going on there. Like 2014, people might say, it's not that, wearables weren't that big, but I think there was a lot of turning points in 2014. If you look back at 2013, wearables were mostly like, you had all the Fitbits and kind of fitness trackers, and then you had, maybe the Pebble or a couple of things that were like trying to get a go at it. But then 2014, all that stuff is now really, taken hold enough that in 2015, I think it'll just boom like crazy.
Exactly, and I do too. I've seen a lot of interesting wearables. I remember another part of South by Southwest, Robert Scoble was wearing a device on his head that wrapped around the opposite way, kind of like a crown, and it was collecting, excuse me, it's collecting data, and very interesting, and a lot of sensor data. And I'm expecting us to be wearing shirts that's going to have something in it in the next year or two. So amazing stuff. But let's do that. Let's kind of turn the tables now. 2014. We've had a lot of very interesting on the trackers. Watch is big. There have been some glass competitors. There's even a person now that's doing a hat, wearable hat, and that just came out a week or two ago. So here we are. We're at the precipice of, is that the right word, precipice, for 2014? We're Sisyphus. We're Sisyphus in that, and we're towards that top of the hill with our boulders, and now we're going to let that boulder go, and it's going to go back to the bottom of the hill. And we're going to do this all over again. That's basically how it's going to work. And but 2015, here we are. We're at the new threshold to a new gateway of what's going to happen in wearables. And of course, the biggest thing that happens in just a week away, Consumer Electronics Show, where we get to learn about what everybody's really been developing. And they even have an area at the International CES, which I could show you a picture of, but it's really just a page of text, because it's just saying who's going to be in what they're calling the wearable marketplace at CES, and that's going to be over at the Sands. And we've got exhibitors like Aptoid, we've got Fashion Tech, we've got Fashion Wear, we've got Fit Links with 2 X's, so it might be, I don't know what that might be. We got L'Oreal, the shampoo L'Oreal, they're going to be in the wearable area. Light Video Eyewear, Tag GPS, Viatech, Wearable Technologies Limited, and Wonderwoof. Yes, Wonderwoof is going to be there. And that's just in a small area in the Sands, and these are probably just people that are looking for other people to fund their projects or get distribution and stuff like that. We're going to see, the bigger stuff, the stuff that's already been announced, the Epson Movarios and the stuff like that are going to be out there in the general population at the Las Vegas Convention Center, trying to find that type of stuff. And one of them, as I was reading, a friend of mine, Jerry Ellsworth, is working on, where was that? She's working on a pair of eyewear called the Cast AR. And very interesting. So I'm hoping that she's going to be out at CES so I can talk to her about that. But the one thing about wearables, the one thing that we really haven't hit on yet, we've been hitting on the health tech for wearables, but the gaming for wearables hasn't really been there because of the Oculus Rift not being out and other VR systems not being ready. But I think we're at this point of readiness where maybe your game console, your Xbox One or your PlayStation, will now start to get some sort of new device where you can wear it to enhance your gaming mood into the wearable technology. I think we're going to see a lot of that come CES. So, Luke, any thoughts on that? Anything that you're kind of privy to that you might say, well, we should watch for this too, or?
Yeah, I'd say definitely keep an eye on all the VR stuff. I mean, there's a lot of stuff happening with Oculus, and then Samsung just announced their Samsung VR thing that currently works with the Note 4. And you've got things like Google Cardboard, which can be kind of an introduction to that whole personalized 3D experience.
Yeah.
So I think, 3D is at least been accepted as kind of, typical or an option. Not everybody likes it. Not every movie that comes out in 3D, or I don't think there's any movie that comes out in 3D that only comes out in 3D and you have to watch it in 3D. They still try to offer a 2D experience, but those 3D shows are getting more and more common. There's getting more and more content. People are becoming more accustomed to it. The devices, really the limiting factor for a lot of it has been the devices that you wear have to have a really high resolution because you're holding them so close to your eyes that if you took like a low res device, those pixels get blown up huge as they fill your vision. And so the new devices are now coming with much higher resolution displays, and it looks pretty good. I can say that it's something that we work on at where I work, and I've seen some demos, and it's pretty good. You pick up something and you're like, oh yeah, I'll play through this for a couple of minutes, just see what it's like. And then 20 minutes later, you're like, I guess I better, put
Get
this
back
down.
to work, yeah.
Yeah, better get back to work because I probably, shouldn't play this long. But like that, I think that's a sign that it's getting to a point where it's not, it's not as headache inducing as it used to be for a lot of people. And people are starting to get real creative with that. So,
Do you remember when Sega put out their virtual masks back in, what was it, 88, 89 with the first with their first Sega Genesis?
No, I don't. I remember the Virtual Boy.
Yeah.
That
Well,
one that Nintendo came out with.
Yeah, Sega. It was basically a pair of glasses, no different than the Oculus Rift, but they had the 3D that did the frame flip, so it would go left, right, left, right at a really high frame rate. So they would then push together, create 3D. I got to play. I remember playing that when I was a kid, and it was very nice, but it was very, of course, jittery because of the fact that it was switching back and forth between the left and the right eye. Seeing this and seeing, of course, I've seen some of the programs that Cardboard has come out with that show the split screen. And of course, I don't have Cardboard. You can make your own. The biggest problem with making your own for Cardboard is apparently the optics.
Yeah, the little lenses.
Yeah, you need focal of 45. I don't remember the focal distance, but you need to have that. That's what makes or breaks the Cardboard. So if you don't have that, it's worthless. But if you can manufacture that, you can prepare yourself and go from there. So we'll see what happens on there. I'm also interested to see where we're going to go with watches now and stuff like that. Now, if you remember correct, last year or earlier this year, Fitbit had a big problem with their Fitbit wearable, and that was causing skin reactions. And and they had to recall a whole bunch of them, but then they came out with new models that everybody seems to love and is happy for. So my question to you, because I stopped wearing watches 10 years ago, and I'm starting to think, well, maybe I should wear a watch. Maybe I should get myself maybe a Moto 360 or something like that. Definitely not going to get an Apple Watch, but do we need to be concerned about this type of stuff? The materials that are being made, you definitely don't want something leaking on your skin and causing a rash. You definitely don't want your your watch device to turn green, like some jewelry does. And you definitely don't want to create any type of health risk or skin tags or something like that, which some jewelry does have been happen with you as we go. So, what are your thoughts on that? Should I people like myself be concerned about stuff like that?
I think it's definitely something to be aware of. You know, I think a lot of people don't maybe know what kind of allergies they have for certain things. I know, like latex, for example. Um, I'm not sure exactly what the Fitbit reaction was from. I don't recall what it was that was causing people to do it, but I know a lot of people have latex reactions, but they don't really notice it until they put on latex gloves, which is not something that everybody wears all the time, right? Like you kind of get into certain scenarios and then you have to put on latex gloves. And
Yeah.
some people might go their whole life never actually having to put them on, so they may never realize that they're allergic to it. So I think it's something to be aware of, and just make sure that anything you buy either has a good return policy if you are do have a reaction to it, or stick with something that is fairly safe. So I think of like the Moto 360. It has just a leather band, and then the device itself is plastic and metal and all those things. Like there's nothing real exotic there that you know that I haven't exposed myself to with other wearable devices. Yes, I've had leather, I've had
Yeah.
plastic against my skin for, prolonged periods of time. So
Yeah.
I know I'm okay with that. So, maybe I do think it's something that, if somebody comes out with something really exotic, oh, it's got this brand new material on there, like, maybe make sure that people aren't having reactions to it before you buy it, or, like I said, kind of make sure you
Yeah.
buy it from someplace that you could return it if you notice that anything happens. And if you notice a
Yeah.
rash forming, consult your doctor.
Consult your doctor. If your watch lasts for more than 4 hours, consult
Yeah.
a doctor. No, actually, you've been wearing your I was going to say Xbox 360. You've
Yeah.
been wearing your Moto 360 for what, a few weeks now, right?
Oh, the Moto 360 I've had for a couple of months, because they finally sent it out. I think it was in September or
Okay.
October, maybe. So I think it's been at least a couple of months now that I've had it, and I've been wearing it not every day, but a fair amount. And
Has it been the one thing that when I did wear a watch, the one thing I'd always have to do is every few weeks I'd have to take it off and kind of take a toothbrush to certain spots, kind of get the dead skin cells and stuff like that out of the way. Do you see anything that's where the sensors could possibly get blocked or anything like that happening?
there's definitely here. I'll take it off real quick. Um, on the back there's some sensors, and I don't know how well this will come up on the camera. So there's some sensors there. You can see these little dots that are kind of on the back of the watch, and I think that's where some of the optical
Back
heart
it up
rate.
just a little bit. I think then I'll be able to focus it in. But I think that's the best we're gonna
Something
do.
there. So
We can see the
there,
dots though.
yeah, so there's some little dots there, kind of on the back, where those sensors are. And yeah, there's a little bit of that sweaty grime that you get. If you've talked on a cell phone, or you touched it too much, right? There's that little grime, and so you kind of want to wipe that off, or clean it off a little bit. But nothing, I would say, real major on it. So nothing atypical. So it doesn't have like a lot of buildup.
Yeah.
And yeah, we've both been wearing our glass for a long time, and yeah, you just checked yours, and I can check mine, and I'm like, yeah, I don't really see any sort of odd buildup on there. So if they're not using anything real exotic, just standard plastic and
Yeah.
titanium, right? On these titanium frames, the titanium collection, but which is not an
You
unusual.
got to say it like this: the Titanium Collection
Yeah,
by Google.
by L'Oreal. No,
By
wait,
Laura-
no, wait, by
yeah,
Google.
okay, well,
By
yeah,
Google.
it's possible. Yeah.
Yeah. But like titanium, that's a standard frame material for glasses. So again,
Yeah.
nothing so exotic that people that have a reaction to it wouldn't have already known, probably, that they have a reaction to that. So, but yeah, nothing too sticky that everything, that gets a lot of dirt buildup on it. So
Yeah.
I think I don't know if it's plastic or glass on the back here. It's pretty pretty nice and smooth.
Yeah, it's probably some sort of not. I wouldn't say it's glass. It's probably some sort of metal,
Yeah,
uh,
stainless steel maybe.
stainless steel. Yeah,
Yeah.
probably. So let's move on because and we've talked, of course. Being our biggest news was we switched from This Week in Google Glass to Wearable today,
Absolutely.
and that that was a tough decision for us to make. We really wanted to stay Twig, but it just didn't. I really wish that it could have went that way. We would have had absolutely no show if we would have stayed at Twig this week because there was no news. I mean, we
Hmm.
even talked about the XE update. The last XE update was on XE 22. So I'm glad we made that switch. We're both still learning a little bit more about the wearables in general and how that area goes. But let's switch the gears here because we've made our predictions on what we're expecting in 2015 to happen to Glass, and it's I'm saying it outright. Google Glass in 2015 will not be around, and it will be replaced by wearable glass or Android Wear Glass or something like that. We haven't really figured out what they're going to do, and of course, whatever they do, they're going to do. But it's going to line up more with Android Wear with the Intel inside, which I was surprised was not on that top 10 list. That Intel is starting to make the processing units for Google Glass. So I think that we're going to see definitely a resurgence of what's going on with Google Glass, which is why it's so quiet right now, and maybe even new models and another $1,500 down the drain for both you and I, right there, Luke?
Yeah, I sure hope not. Yeah, I agree that I think there's going to be there's got to be some sort of Google Glass announcement, and yeah, I think we're both kind of expecting that they'll sunset this version, and we may differ on kind of what we think. I think they'll go to some sort of Android Wear version of it. Perhaps they'll maintain some sort of compatibility with the Google Glass APIs. At this point, I don't think they need to. We had the article a couple weeks ago about how a lot of developers for Glass have kind of abandoned their Google Glass software just because there weren't that many users. They didn't invest a whole lot into it. Like, it didn't take them
Yeah.
that long to build anyway. So it's not like, they put $1 million developing this software and no one's using it. Now they're really upset. It's like, we spent a couple of days or a week, writing some software. We had one of our guys do it, and then, it was fun and it got us some press and it was neat, but nobody's using it. So I don't think that there'll be a lot of upset companies, but I think that we'll see kind of some sort of change to it, and they won't. Yeah, Google kills stuff off, and yeah, you kind of deal with it.
Yeah.
Hopefully, they'll do the right thing and try to make it. Try to be nice to all their Glass Explorers and maybe provide them whatever this new thing is, for
Yeah.
free, and to try to help continue, that Explorer program in some way. But yeah, it just feels like they haven't done very much in months, and so you kind of wonder, will they like it's probably some big news for Glass in 2015, but it's probably not news that people that love Glass are going to be excited to hear.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And you nailed it right on the head. Google closes stuff, but I just got done doing my day in tech history 2014 recap, where I basically had to go and figure out all the news stories and make sure that they're all in their proper place, and then I put out the big article. It's over on dayintechhistory.com. But the bottom line is that I see companies close stuff all the time. Yahoo is a very notorious for getting something, not doing anything with it, and then just kind of saying, well, we don't need it anymore, so we're just going to shutter it. Microsoft is shutter. Of course, Microsoft's big thing is they're shuttering the clip art. A couple weeks ago they announced that, but Google also announced that come this time next year, Google Earth API will be shut down. And so, it's just that game of what goes from point A to point B. And right now I think we're at point B when it comes to Google Glass, and we're going to hop to a new point A. and that's going to be Android Wear, and definitely going to be having a glass. It won't be Google, like I said, it won't be Google Glass. It'll be Android Glass, because it just makes more sense to align it that way. But we won't know until they come out with it. They're not really big on spreading any rumors or anything like that. But that's just what we're expecting, and which is pretty much on the same lines, right? Right, Luke?
Yeah, yeah, and we're gonna see Apple release the Apple Watch, which will uh, create a bunch of parity for the iOS side, and you'll start to see more apps on both platforms.
Yep.
You'll see like Android Wear enhancements for apps. You'll see Apple Watch enhancements for apps, and it's going to be really, interesting to see how will people adopt wearables. I think it'll be a lot like smartphones, where at first it'll be kind of, the nerds and the tech geeks that'll have these wearable devices, and let's just say the non-tech geeks, kind of the average consumer will say, that's kind of for nerds, and I don't really see the point of it. And then the tech geeks will say, oh, but check out what I just did from my watch or from, my glass or whatever. And they'll say, oh, I guess that's kind of neat. And then, a week or two later, they'll say, oh, check out this cool thing now I can do with my watch. And then the normal, the average, consumer will say, actually, that's kind of cool. And then, after that happens, half a dozen times, then the average consumer says, well, actually, that's kind of useful. I think I'll get one now. Now it does enough stuff that I can relate to and that interests me, and now I'll get it. So I think we're going to see a lot of that in 2015.
I think the only exception to what you're saying is basically the Apple Watch. The Apple Watch, Apple could put out a piece of, and I could use an expletive here, and they could call it Apple. Let's just say Apple poop. They call it Apple poop. They put out Apple poop. It's a piece of poop, and people will just sit there and go, "I have an Apple poop." Why? Because it's an Apple poop. It's Apple, and the reality, and that's the reality. I mean, people went out and bought iPhone 6s. 2 days later, they talk about how the iPhone 6 is so flimsy it starts to bend. Everybody started bending their iPhone 6. Yeah. It blew my mind. Instead of saying, wait a minute, I'm going to have a phone that could possibly bend and break, I better return it, or I better sign some petition to get a recall going so I could. No, what did they do? They made videos on how they could bend their iPhones. It was like the ALS ice bucket challenge. I challenge you to bend your iPhone, and they did it. And we had a ton of videos on people bending technically $700 iPhones, but with the contract it's only $300. Where's the logic there?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Apple's going to come out with a watch. Everybody's going to run and get Apple Watch, and they're going to say, because it's Apple Watch. They don't run out to get a Moto 360, and it could be 100 times better than the Apple Watch. They're going to get an Apple Watch because it's an Apple Watch. And they don't care about the fact that Samsung already did it. They don't care about the fact that Pebble already did it. They don't care about the fact that Moto 360 already did it. Apple Watch. That's their blinders are on when it comes to any other watch right now, and I think that's something big. So maybe we should we come out with Apple Poop?
Applepoop.com.
Applepoop.com. So somebody's probably got that website somewhere.
Yeah. It's like, you can there are fans of a lot of stuff. I will say that the Moto 360 did have a lot of fans. They sold very well. The Nexus devices that Google puts out, they sold very well. They're all sold out still. So I mean, I think there's fans of any company. I would agree that Apple fans may be the most, hardcore, and they'll buy pretty much anything with an Apple logo on. Like I will say, I tend to see more of those that are always like that they support Apple no matter what they do, even if other devices seem to do it better. I try not to take that same approach from Google. Like if I see something Google related, I don't always say that's the best way. Sometimes I'm like, nah, actually, I don't like that. I don't have a Nexus 6 because it's really big, and I haven't gotten comfortable with the idea of having a phone that big. I know
Yeah.
a lot of people have, and some people a friend of mine at work has one, and I kind of held it. I'm like, this thing is huge. I don't know if I want a phone that big.
Yep.
And I heard a lot of the same things from people on the Apple side of like when they announced it, people saying, "Oh, this phone's pretty big." You know what? They pretty much all went out and just bought one day one.
Yep.
Like they didn't actually wait to see if they were, to wait till somebody else got it and
Hmm.
did all that. And I'm like, well, I kind of waited, so I consider myself not as blind to whatever the company does. It's like, I try to see what
Yeah.
they do and see if it really fits with what I want to do. And
Yeah,
you know,
my technically my contract's been up since September, and that was when I had my iPhone 5, and of course my iPhone 5 got stolen a year and a half ago.
mhm.
So I could actually go to back to my carrier and say, hey, let's get a new contract, and this is the phone. And I've been seriously thinking about getting an Apple phone, even though I probably won't stick on the Apple device, because I need to have an iOS 8 device other than my iPad here to actually talk about apps and stuff like that. So I'd probably switch it back to my Nexus 5, which I love to death. And you're right. I looked at the Nexus 6, and it's kind of like the Moto X. It's a little bit bigger, and it's also very pricey. I mean, we're not
Yeah,
talking
yeah,
$350. It's $650 for that device, out of
yeah,
contract. So, I like the idea of what I've got right now,
mhm,
and the only reason to do the contract upgrades is simply just to have a phone that I can use for other
yeah,
functionality.
yeah,
So, but
yeah.
all right, well, we're going off on a tangent,
A
fanboy
little bit.
tangent. But the
Yeah.
whole point is, within 2015, watches are definitely going to explode. And I
Hmm.
have a feeling that Samsung is going to also get back in the game with their watches when Apple Watch comes out 2015. We're also waiting to see what's going to happen with Windows. I'm sorry, Windows 10. I was going to say Windows 9, but it's Windows 10, because it's a one platform. If you don't understand, they basically it's one platform for all devices. So your phone, your tablet, your computer will have the same version of Windows 10 on the device, and they haven't really expressed how they're really getting into the wearable games. I know they've been looking at and purchasing companies related to wearables, but they're kind of like the silent person, the ninja that's going to sneak up and say, hey, here's our wearable devices, here's our Windows 10 wearable devices. And so I think we're going to see a big explosion when it comes to Apple, Google, and Microsoft, and it might even blow some of these smaller companies like Pebble and Motorola, well, although that's owned by Lenovo now, kind of out of the water when it comes to that type of game. So anyway, that's so we've got a lot to talk about when it comes to 2015, a lot to talk about, and we will be talking about it. And the best part is, but first of all, we're going to talk about our schedule, as I just took a picture with my blink option. We're going to talk about the schedule, of course, next week. Excuse me. Next week, I'm going to the Consumer Electronics Show. And what I'll try and do is I'll try and put together some interviews with the wearables and put that out as a Wearable Today episode. Depending on time, we'll see what happens, because I get back on Friday night, the 9th. The 10th, I'm at home, and the 11th, I get on another plane to go to the North American International Auto Show. Now, we're talking about wearables. Vehicles and wearables are starting to go hand in hand. Last year, I got to see, I think it was Mercedes, working with Pebble Steel, working with Google Glass to put together some sort of safe driving stuff. I'm expecting to see a lot more of it at the North American International Auto Show. So I'm going to be there for a while doing video, and then I get back. So our next show is actually going to be in 3 weeks. So it'll be the third week of January, which I don't have. Let me pull up a calendar really quick. Yeah, I say really quick, but it doesn't really mean really quick. So, yeah, 3 weeks. So it'll be the 18th, or I'm sorry, no, it won't be the 19th of January because, well, maybe we'll see what happens. That's a very special day for me. And unless Luke, you want to do a show by yourself.
I don't know if I could hold down the fort. I guess we'll just have to see.
Yeah,
Have to decide.
we'll play it by ear, and of course
Yeah.
it's Martin Luther King Day that day. So, but it's also a very special day for me. We'll definitely have in the next couple weeks. We'll get you. I'll get you that video in between, so you have something to munch on before we get back. But we'll either have the 19th or 26th. Just follow Wearable Today over on Google plus.google.com / and I think it's This Week in Glass plus This Week in Glass. I can change it to Wearable Today. It just takes a little time to do that. So, or just follow us, Jeffrey Powers, Geekazine on Twitter, and of course Luke Luca with Luke. So Luke, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you? I kind of did that already, but go for it anyway.
Yeah, you can find me at Luke Luca on Twitter, LukeEluca, or plus Luke Wallace. If you're looking for Birdie, Birdie's right here. You can reach her at Birdie at wearabletoday.com. That's BIRDIE at wearabletoday.com. Yep, she says that's right. That's the email address. Or you can email me at Luke at wearabletoday.com. Yeah, and we will gladly respond to that email on the break. So,
all right, and of course Jeff at wearabletoday.com. You can definitely email me there. Geekazine and geekazine.com, or just go to the show notes and go to the contact section and comment there. There's so many ways to get a hold of us. It's crazy.
Yeah.
You want a phone number? 608-205-4378. You can call us. Call us and say, hey, what's up with you guys? What's up with this sweater? What's up with those poi gloves and stuff like? What's up with the Boydie? I don't understand. So anyway, we've got some great stuff coming up. We've been talking with Marco. He's going to be getting us some 3D printed stuff, and we're going to be talking about that with him in the upcoming episodes. We've got some other guests I'm going to line up and get on the show, so we're definitely going to have a great 2015. So first of all, I want to thank everybody that's listened and watched and commented on This Week in Google Glass, and the fact that a couple weeks ago we had one of our top downloaded shows. It really means, it says a lot that you guys really are interested in this stuff. So keep that coming. And of course, 2015, it's going to be awesome. Can't wait for that to happen. So that's pretty much it. Luke, you have, I'll see you next year. How's that?
I will see you next year as well, and I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a big, big year.
All right, there you go. So thanks a lot, Luke, and thanks a lot to you for watching, listening over at Wearable Today. Hope you have a safe, very safe, drive safe, practice safe driving, no drinking and driving, all that stuff. They're going to be out in force to click it or ticket campaign, so just have designated drivers and be safe so we can catch you on the flip side in 2015. Thanks a lot for watching. You guys geek out, and we'll see you next time on our favorite show, Wearable Today.